When thinking about protectionism, just like any policy, we want to analyze the costs and the benefits. As we saw in the previous example, the benefit is that we're protecting jobs within our domestic industries that otherwise would be lost due to trade. I say lost because, in my view, these jobs are not disappearing, but simply shifting to another domestic industry. Regardless, perhaps we're worried about domestic workers losing their jobs due to international trade, and that's why we've taken on a tariff in order to protect that industry. So the benefit in that case would be retaining those jobs for domestic workers in that particular industry. The cost would be deadweight loss, as we calculated within our example. Simple theoretical example, but in class I will try to show you some more concrete numbers to give you an example of what that might look like. But not only do we observe deadweight loss within that particular market, but we also observe effects in related markets. So we want to think here about which groups outside of the market in which the tariff has been placed, what other groups might be affected by the tariff. So probably the first one that comes to mind is foreign exporters. If we've decreased the quantity of goods that we're importing, that affects the seller of those goods, the producers of those goods in other countries. So I'll say foreign exporters or producers. They will, of course, be harmed because they're going to be losing revenue since we will no longer be importing as much of the products that they are producing. The second group that's affected are consumers and producers in markets that use this product as an input. You'll notice that many of the products that we have these sorts of policies for are in industries that are primary industries. In other words, agriculture, extractive industries like mining, or secondary industries like manufacturing. Particularly for those primary industries, these products are going to be used as an input to produce other products. And so what is happening then is that manufacturers that use this product as an input will also now have an increased cost of production. So for example, we have a lot of protection around sugar. We try to increase the price of sugar and limit the quantity that's imported. The result is that in the US, sugar costs more than it does in other countries. And we see food manufacturers then switching to consuming cheaper alternatives, high fructose corn syrup, for example. And you may be familiar with the example of Coca-Cola. In Mexico, Coca-Cola is produced using sugar. In the US, it's produced using high fructose corn syrup. Another strategy would be for that business to relocate to somewhere where it's cheaper to purchase sugar. So some manufacturers in the candy industry have moved out of the US and into Mexico because, again, it's cheaper to purchase sugar in Mexico due to the protectionism surrounding importing sugar into the United States. They then produce candy in Mexico and then export the candy to the United States. So consumers and producers in markets that use the product as an input will also be heavily impacted by the tariff. Finally, the tariff will, of course, increase consumer spending in this market and decrease then consumer spending in other markets. So if we have to spend more to buy sugar or more to buy a car, then we're going to have less money left over to buy other things. So to the extent that the tariff decreases consumer spending in other markets, that could be bad both for consumers and also for producers in other markets. We're going to explore some numbers in class just to give you a sense of how we can try to quantify and weigh the trade-offs of protecting domestic workers with the cost of protectionism.